We have a really good story to tell about ANSWERROCKET and AB InBev and our partnership so far and where we're going thanks to generative AI. So to introduce myself, my name is Joey GASPIERIK. I'm an enterprise account executive here at ANSWERROCKET. I've been with the company 6 years, working with companies like AB InBev to solve some complex challenges as it relates to analysis that they're doing every day. And I'm joined with one of our great partners, Liz Davies.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Liz Davies. I'm a Senior Insights Manager at AB InBev. Within Insights, I'm responsible for brand and consumer insights for Budweiser Europe, but I also lead the reporting process for our European brand guidance data stream. So I'm really happy to be here today to have the opportunity to talk to you about our experience with Gen AI and our partnership with ANSWERROCKET. So for anyone who doesn't know or isn't super familiar with ABI, we're the world's #1 brewer, and we're one of the biggest consumer goods companies in the world, brewing over 500 million hectoliters of beer every year. Our purpose as a company is to dream big, to create a future with more cheers. And we do this partly via our vast portfolio of brands. So we have 500 brands across 100 markets, led by our big global giants that I'm sure you know, like Corona, Budweiser, Stella Artois, but also supported by our market-specific local jewels and our crafts and specialty portfolio as well, one of which is actually Camden Hells serving over in the walkway, so hopefully see you later. And as a business, one of our core principles is around putting the consumer at the heart of what we do, and that's very much the mission within Insights. And so we're constantly trying to find ways to become more consumer-centric. And one of the problems that we're trying to solve is around how we can get really strong consumer insights from all of the reams of data that we get. And we get a lot of data, kind of like what Chris was saying to you yesterday, Joey. We have a lot of data. One of the biggest sets of data that we get is our quarterly brand guidance data. And we get it from Kantar every month, which our teams then have to manually extract and then manually convert into the reports that are a lot more digestible for our various marketing teams. So it's a very manual process. And outside of our standard reports, yes, we have, the traditional dashboards like Power BI, which are great and definitely support our business. But the struggle that we have is when we want more ad hoc views, or we want an answer that isn't necessarily set up within the parameters of a dashboard, that's where we struggle. And then we have to again turn, and it becomes a much more manual process again, which takes more time. And so what we really wanted and what we looked to Joey and the team for was really three things. Firstly, a tool that's going to give us quick answers. So outside of our standard reports, we're not waiting for hours or days or needing multiple people to be able to pull us data that we need to make decisions. Secondly, we want something that's easy to use. We want our brand teams to adopt this, and the easier it is to use, the more they're going to do it. And then they have the data at their own fingertips. And finally, something that's entirely flexible so that every question can get an answer. And in theory, we don't need to be doing those ad hoc data pulls anymore. And really, that's kind of what we want and what we want our future to look like as a European insights community. We've been buying brand guidance data now for 5 years. And over that time, we're really trying to embed within our business this distinction between brand tracking, very looking backwards, what's happened, versus brand guidance, which is what we want to be doing with our data, using the data to really illuminate the way forward. And at the moment, because of all the manual inputs needed and the time needed, we're spending more time almost on the tracking versus the guidance. We want to make sure we're getting the relevant data to the relevant decision makers, to empower them to make their decisions. And they aren't going to be slowed down or hampered by having to wait for someone, to pull some data set that's going to take a couple of days. And we want fewer gatekeepers so that this data can get into our wider community and we can really democratize the decision-making process.
And that's, Liz, where we met when you were hoping to do these things, and we said, hey, we can help, right? And you were doing a lot of work, or your internal data teams are doing a lot of work, a lot of engineering work and data transformation to put everything into a data warehouse. And that's step one, right? ANSWERROCKET connects directly to that data warehouse. We can help you leverage the investments that you're already making there, and then help your business teams tap into that using natural language, right? Those quick answers you're talking about, where we can answer questions like, hey, what countries are seeing the highest brand power growth this year? What other metrics that are important to the use case, like meaningful difference, salience, how are those trending by quarter? What age groups or other demographic informations are performing well? And that's really where we set off and saw a lot of success, right? Helping those business teams answer those questions, and great results so far. I mean, we've been working on this for a matter of months. We're close to 100 users who have been trained and active in the tool on just the European Insights team. There have been over 13,000 questions asked with a really high success rate. And instead of waiting the days, weeks, or trying to guess on some of these answers, you're getting them in an average time of 12 seconds, right? The other thing that's really important here is it's not just the answers to the questions, it's the automated reports. And we're going to touch on that in just a moment about how we're helping with that even further. But these are the reports that start to lead the questions that you get. Hey, why are we down here? Why are we up here? What's going on with this competition? And so far, the feedback that we've gotten has been positive. And there's no better person to tell you that than Liz. You're a user of the solution. So talk about some of the usage so far.
Yeah, sure, Joey. Well, as an insights manager, I'm using this tool a lot, but I'm also seeing my brand teams use it and adopt it. And for me, what's so valuable is the amount of time I'm able to save when I'm not having to field, ad hoc random questions that just get peppered to you. I'm sure like anyone working in insights will know. And yes, I'm sure a lot of the 13,000 questions are being asked by insights, but a lot of them will also be coming from brands. And yes, when they have that confidence to go to the tool, ask the question, get the answer, and not send it across to the insights team. All of those small things take 5, 10, 15 minutes to do, and it all builds up, which just goes onto your extra workload. So for me personally, it's been a great kind of time saver.
And when we look at the future of our relationship, it's really going to be guided by generative AI and how we can take it from 100 users to 1,000 users over the next several months, which has been a challenge that we've gotten already from the team and where we're headed. And if you look at this slide, then you know why Gen AI is so important. This is even an outdated slide at this point, but the growth of ChatGPT, getting to 1 million users in 5 days, was eye-opening to us. And it looked like a way that we could help sort of break down some sort of normal adoption barriers that exist in the BI space. And it starts by understanding, okay, ChatGPT is really good at some things, and our augmented analytics platform is good at other things. But what ChatGPT is not very good at is that enterprise level security and simple math and sticking to the facts. Everybody hears about hallucinations and its tendency to want to make up answers, connecting to different data sources and understanding those unique company business concepts like brand guidance, what goes into brand guidance. So these are things that ChatGPT, if you tried to use it for this, you wouldn't get the right results. Now, it's a great conversational tool, and that's why it's both exciting and scary when you use it as an end user, because you feel like you're having a conversation with a human on the other side. And you get these answers that are back, very insightful answers that come back in seconds. So whenever we look at the union of these two technologies, on the left side here, the large language models like GPT, with our augmented analytics platform that Liz just described, is a game changer across the business at helping to automate analysis and get to those quick answers for the business. The combination of the two creates a generative AI analyst, right? Something that's intuitive, something that feels like you're talking to an analyst on your team. Combines robust narratives to give you some sort of insights that can actually help you take action. And the real kicker here is broader adoption. How do we take it from 100 to 1,000 users? And when we think about an AI analyst, there's important things to think about here. It knows what you want. It's a subject matter expert. It knows how to look at brand guidance data. It helps you look at the whole picture, not just the what happened to brand power, but why is it down? How is that tracking versus my competition? Does this in seconds and remembers everything. If you asked your analyst today, hey, how's my brand power doing for my brand? And they asked you, well, what's your brand? And you told them Budweiser. And then tomorrow you said, how's my brand doing? They told you Budweiser. It's not a very good analyst, right? So Max remembers everything that you have asked it and have had a conversation with it. And that's where Max comes in. GPT-powered data analyst that we can plug in to your company's data. It's conversational because it's powered by GPT. And it's not just an intern. It's not answering those simple questions. Max is answering those questions that take an expertise that a seasoned person at your company would be able to answer, but it does this all in seconds. And the key part here is it's available whenever you need. We all understand sort of the frustration that comes from sending an email out to a colleague and you need an answer on something and you get that out of office. There's no out of office with Max. Doesn't matter if it's a weekday or a weekend. It's available whenever you need it. So as we roll out Max and as we deploy Max and start to build different co-pilots for our customers leveraging the Max platform, there are some very important principles that we know we need to follow in order to drive adoption. And we're going to demo some of these in just a moment and what they look like and talk about how they relate back to the use case that Liz just described. One of them is meet the users where they are. The embeddability of this solution into front-end applications like Teams, like Slack, like company intranets or portals where you're going to today to get to answers and insights. That's important. I don't want to have to learn a new solution. I don't want to have to go to a new place. I want to just log in where I'm used to and get answers just like I would if I were Slacking an analyst on my team. Another very important principle is existing outputs, right? If you don't match outputs that users are used to, they're not going to use it. They're going to say, this isn't what I'm used to getting. This isn't the PowerPoint that I'm used to getting. This isn't the dashboard that I go to every morning when I'm trying to find these KPIs. Max should be able to retrieve these, automate these, build those PowerPoints in a pixel-perfect manner that can help users not only understand what they're looking at, they're used to this output, but it helps them get to that decision-making much faster. The third thing up here is skills. Well, what are those? Well, that is how you deliver expertise through Max, right? So if I'm asking a what question, which, by the way, no business user cares about what happened. They want to know why it happened. Okay, I see my sales are down. I care about that, but why did that happen? That's going to help me get to the strategy that I need to set. So how we do that is we have out-of-the-box skills and we have customer skills that we're building alongside of our customers where we're doing things like driver analysis or forecasting or cluster techniques or different types of skills that help solve the user's problem and, again, answer those more complex questions that usually take days, weeks, or the majority of users are guessing at because they don't have enough time to answer. And then the other points here are structured data and unstructured data. Sure, it's great to have something on top of Snowflake that can help you crunch numbers, but there's a number of different data sources. I like to refer to as dark data, your PDFs, your PowerPoints, all of the playbooks that large organizations have that help guide their organization in terms of next steps they should be taking. This all lives in knowledge bases that have thousands and thousands of documents that you have to sift through that require a lot of manual effort to do. So being able to tap into not only the structured but the unstructured data is pivotal to, again, broader adoption, and it's all powered by GPT. So again, Max feels like someone that's a part of your team, and he feels like an expert. So Liz, what I want to talk about is the use case that we have really set off on here, and one that we're implementing and one that we are driving in the marketplace today. Let's talk about brand guidance, right? So there's these decks that get automated, or not automated, that's where we're going. The decks that you're producing today. Talk about that process, what it's like, and what it means to the team.
Sure. Well, you know very well yourself, it's a very lengthy process. So typically, once the quarter's finished, about a couple of weeks after that, maybe midway through the month, we receive our raw data from Kantar. Like I said, our data insight team and our global capability center then have to manually extract all the data and then manually build all of the reports that are needed. Firstly, we need to prioritize certain reports. So we prioritize business critical reports, which means that often, our standardized quarterly brand reports, we often have to wait, 2-3 days at least before our data insight team can even start building them. And then, like I said, it's a very manual process. Like, yes, we're using certain tools to try and streamline and speed it up as much as possible, but most reports will typically take between 1 and 3 days to actually build. And of course, we only have so many people, so we can only produce so many reports at a certain time, which means that we need to stagger the delivery of all of our reports, which in turn means that, sometimes brand teams will be waiting 1, 2, 3 weeks to even receive their reports just because of the amount of focus brands and focus markets that we cover across Europe in our team. And so what this, platform is really giving us is, massive improvements in the efficiency of our reporting process. So now with Max, as soon as those databases land, the tool will be automating these reports, in a matter of hours. So it means that all the reports will be ready at the same time, can be sent at the same time, and can be sent, again, literally hours after we send out those business critical results across our marketing community. And not only that, the reports will look pixel perfect. So they look exactly the same as the regular reports that our teams are used to getting. And with Max's driver analysis, all of the commentary, so that tracking, what's happened, that's all automated as well. So really frees up time for our insights team to be focusing on, the really valuable stuff, which is the so what's. What is the guidance? What actions do our brand teams need to be taking based on performance? And that's what's really exciting about Max for us as a business.
Yeah, and the key things there are, and it relates back to manual analysis. Everyone in this room should be able to relate. If you're doing things manually, you have to prioritize, right? You have to say, okay, we'll start with these brands, and then we'll get to these brands when we can get there. And it usually is led by where you have the most share, you have the most sales, but you have very important brands that are waiting weeks to get to these insights, and they need these insights to drive decision making. And then what follows up next is, well, why did this happen? And we'll get into that next with the driver analysis. Yeah. But I think it's very important to say 1 to 3 weeks down to 1 to 2 hours, right? We're taking an entire process of getting all of the European insights reports out for the brand guidance use case from a 20-ish day to a 3-day. We're talking 4 business weeks down to 1 business week for the entire zone to have all of their insights reports. It's huge. It's massive, especially in the CPG space where you want to win, you want to be first, you want to beat your competition to the market.
Precisely.
So what we want to do now is say, okay, we've talked a lot about it. Let's look at how we are automating this. And the first thing we're going to show you is more of this pixel perfect automation, right? What does this look like? We're not going to show you the complete deck because we're not allowed to show the complete deck, but we are going to show some examples of what do I mean by pixel perfect and how does it match exactly the replication when someone says something like, how are consumer purchase behaviors changing for Beck's? That's a days-long answer if you're doing it manually. We'll show how we can automate that. And then also, when you get these reports, Liz, usually people go, all right, well, this is what guides our questions that we have. Why are we down here? Why are we up here? Usually it's the why are we down. Nobody likes to lose, right? So everybody wants to know that very quickly. So we're going to show you how we're automating that process using one of our complex skills called the brand equity driver analysis skill for something like, hey, explain what happened to Spaten's brand power in Germany. If you haven't had Spaten, I would go find one of the very delicious beers. We talked about that last night. So with that, let me jump into the demo. We're going to do it live here on stage. A, because we're brave, and B, because it works. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to look at these brand reports. And I'm going to say, how are consumer purchase behaviors changing for Beck's, is one of your brands, in Q1 2022. So we're going to look at something that was a little bit in the past, and I'll pass that over to Max. Max is going to take this question. Max is going to look for the right report to produce and work on building that output, again, in a pixel perfect format. So this is the output that we get. This isn't a line chart or a bar chart or something that just shows us some of the different things that we might happen over time, but this is exactly how you look at this. When I see the before and after of what you build manually, It's pixel perfect. So talk about how that is valuable to the business.
Well, you've all just seen how quickly that's taken to run. And like Joey said, our Beck's report will, again, take 1 to 2 days for the team to build in its entirety. And what's, super valuable for us is it looks exactly the same as the PowerPoints that we send out every quarter to our Beck's brand team. And I think what's really important is, over the last 5 years that we've been buying this data, we've really been honing our reports to give us, the exact views that we want that's going to be most valuable for our teams. And for us, this is it. So we don't want to be changing it. We want it to look the same. And of course, with any business, when you start to change things, we don't want to lose engagement. We want the brand teams to receive the data in the way that they're used to receiving it. So they understand how to read the ladders. They understand conversion. Even things like the significance. This is something that the ANSWERROCKET team were able to, embed into this skill. And for us, significance is super important. And our data insight team in our GCC would be manually inputting significance, calculating it first, and then having to set up the formatting so that it all, pulls out those significant changes year on year or quarter on quarter. So very, very manual, but done now in like the touch of a button.
Yeah, and when she says significance, it's the red numbers and the green numbers, because in the world of surveys, a change doesn't necessarily mean anything unless it is significant. And so that is a skill in of itself here that's looking through the data and updating these charts and telling you whether they're significant or not which is where then you would dig in. And again, it's probably the red number that you'd go to first. What's going on here, and how do we stop that? I've got another question typed in here around performance overviews. And the reason why I want to show this is because, well, it was a challenge we got from the team. They look at this data in a very particular way, and I'm just stressing the fact of existing outputs. This is how you drive adoption, because when they were looking at some of the outputs that we had originally, they said, we really need these propeller charts. And I probably heard the term propeller charts more in my life last year than I'd ever heard before then, right? So why this is important is because this is how you look at the business. And being able to deliver this in this pixel perfect format just helps you, again, it helps the users know what they're looking at, make decisions, and get to that strategy faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is the pixel perfect demo. What I'm going to show now is more around the driver analysis, because again, those decks are just step one, right? And it takes 3 weeks in some cases to get to step one. Yeah. Step two is, well, why are we down, right? So in this case, I'm going to ask the question, what's going on with Spaten in Germany in Q4, we're going to try Q4 2022. And this is a question, Liz, that's asked all the time. How do you answer it today?
Well, we have to wait for the reports in the first place, so we need those to be produced. And then, again, it's a very manual process where the insights team member will dig through the data, go through it, in fine detail, and essentially piece together the narrative about what's driving our overall brand's power. So what are the drivers? What's happening with our meaning, our difference and salience? Beyond that, what are our image associations that are changing, that we can understand why our meaning is changing, for example? So again, it's a very kind of time-intensive process, which the insights team, typically need to complete. And that means that's less time, again, for us to actually focus on the so what's. What do our brand teams need to be doing in the next few months to really kind of, impact performance? And again, with drivers, the drivers tool, it's just been pulled just as I was talking to you now.
I was going to say, Liz, it took about twice as long to describe how you do this than it took Max to actually do it at a very deep level. The first time we showed this to you, you read through it, and it was, version 0 at the time, and you were impressed. And I remember you saying, this feels like an analyst on our team wrote this. Yeah. And that's before we made any changes. It's getting closer and closer to that expert analyst that is on your team that doesn't just tell you what's going on with brand power and what it was before and what it is now. What are the metric drivers? That's very important to understanding how consumers are reacting to the different campaigns that are being run in the market. The demographic trends, again, explaining where you're seeing growth, where you're seeing decline. And again, that's where you're targeting some of those marketing campaigns. Are they paying off? And then competitive landscape. If you're winning, who are you winning it from? If you're losing, who's stealing it from you, right? Yeah. Now, what are they doing? Go run the same driver analysis on their brands and see where are they focused? What metrics are they doing? Is it the meaningful, different salience that they're seeing growth? So you can glean some insights on what they're doing and try and capture a bit of that power back. The other thing that we get with this is not just insights, but whenever we show the teams at ABI this chart here, it not only goes into the metrics and the different competitors and how they're tracking over time with spark lines of what's happened and trending over time, but also where they're doing well, where they're weak or strong or deteriorating based on the health status over time, the historical health status. And then rank changes, right? If a brand is overtaking our brand, how many steps did they move up? Where did we fall back? And what might have happened? And we get into more details around the different demographic information, into imagery, right? So how do people feel? How do they associate with our different brands, and what are they doing when they're using the brands? And it just is a lot of information on one slide. And getting this information, and again, not only on the focus brands, but across the portfolio. On slide 1, when you talked about ABI, you're the largest brewer in the world. It's not just focus brands. You have so many brands across all of your different regions. And now you can focus on all of them thanks to Max. And again, not just brand reporting, but brand guidance, which is what you ultimately want to be doing.
Yeah. And I think what I'd pick out on what you said, Joey, is the fact that, we did say this is like an analyst wrote this. And yes, as an insights team, we have the experience and the expertise to be able to write commentary like this. But our brand managers don't necessarily have that. Our commercial teams definitely don't have that. And so now, because it's such like a natural language, they can literally say, what's going on with Corona in the UK? And Max will be able to tell them a very rich narrative that they themselves would probably struggle to get to and probably have to rely more on that guesswork, which we really want to remove from our insights process.
So we've talked a lot about where we've been and where we're going, but the next steps with this, right? When we talk about Max and the power of Max, we talk about the word that's floating around and co-pilots, right? How do we build marketing co-pilots and bring not only brand guidance, automation of quarterly reporting and driver analysis, but then how do we also integrate things like playbooks that can help guide next steps? Or if you see an action in the market, how can Max prescribe the next best action to the teams on what they can take and democratize best actions across the board? Integrating with different places like your knowledge base or other important dashboards where you log into every day so that you have access to Max and don't have to go search or understand a different tool or where to go find that. And then bringing in other data like market share data. Because combined with market share data, you can understand what your consumers think and feel about your products, but then also how are they acting on that in the market and how are you seeing the marketing efforts pay off with market share and revenue growth. So that is the presentation that we wanted to show you all today. It's a journey that it's been so exciting so far, Liz. I want to thank you first and foremost, not only for the partnership so far, but for joining me on stage here and telling everyone else about this. And I want to thank everyone in the crowd for taking some time out of your day to check this out. So I think we do have a couple of minutes left. I think we have 5 minutes left, which is pretty good, Liz. We did good.
We did very well.
So if there are any questions, feel free to ask them now, or you can come by the booth. Yep. Got a microphone coming.
First of all, that was a very impressive demo. Congratulations. I think it's a very inspiring story. I wanted to know if, especially the second demo that you did, the output of the chatbot, I'm assuming it's a template, right? Like you've kind of like generated a template in the background that the chatbot is able to generate because it's always pixel perfect, especially like that chart that had like a number of inputs. Is that correct? Essentially, you're creating skills or templates that the chatbot in the background is able to respond to and generate on demand. Is that correct?
I don't know if I'd use the word template, but let me put, whenever we talk about how you want your teams to analyze the business, there is a formatted way that they want to look at it so that everybody has the same way to view the brand guidance analysis. So there is sort of a structured format that we would follow in terms of we're always going to start with the metric drivers, and then we're going to go into the competitors and the demographics and things like that. And then the text that is being generated is actually coming from the underlying database. It's pulling back the data and then putting it into a format. And that's where we leverage the large language model to say, write this as an analyst would. So template, I don't know if I'd use that word, but.
And in the data, the actual numbers that you're getting, like the data that is showcasing, are you also like generating the SQL that hits the CDW to derive that data, or are you just retrieving that data that has already been computed somewhere?
No, so AnswerRocket, the platform, we've been around for a decade. And what we've been doing to help users answer questions is natural language processing the SQL. We've been doing that for 10 years. So that's actually the easy part for us. So what we are doing is when you run that question, what Max is doing is interpreting. That's where we use the model, is to pull the intent out of the question, understand that humans dialogue and go, oh, why is Spaten down, or what's happening with Spaten in Germany? Oh, what's happening? Well, they're looking for a driver analysis, so that's the right AI skill to run. And then it's going to tell AnswerRocket, the augmented analytics platform, to go fetch the right data from the underlying database using SQL, running different Python skills, whatever's necessary to then put it back in a format that you saw on the screen.
Awesome, thank you.
Follow up with something like that. Like, I'm just thinking, what if you ask a question that haven't been asked before? Like, let's say you said you have 12,000 or 1,000 of ad hoc question every quarter or every year from different team, different brand team, and you have a set of data training to train that model you just saw at Max. But what if they new question that haven't been asked before, that you haven't trained the model for that question? So is it the model gonna be able to learn and adapt and then generate a new report that it not is the one that based on the, not the template, but like something that the team expected?
So if a question has never been asked before, but there's data to support it in the database that we're connected to, Max would just run the query and go find the answer. So if you said something like, instead of what's happening with Spaten in Germany, you say, what's the top demographic for Spaten in Germany? That's not a driver analysis or anything else, but we have that information in the database. So what would happen is Max would facilitate that conversation with you. Most likely, Max is smart enough to go, oh, we're looking for the top demographic. It might bring back the top 5 demographics for Spaten in Germany at that time period, and it would go execute the new query. We're not training on questions. I just want to sort of be clear on that. We've never trained on questions. We train on the underlying data. We understand the data model, and we understand the insights that are necessary to help you get to decisions and our customers get to decisions. So if there's a new question and the data is there to support it, we just pass it through to the database and answer it. Now, if it was like, how do I make spaghetti? Then it'd just say, I don't know, right? So if you're asking a question that's absolutely against the data that we have, then Max wouldn't be able to answer something like that. Does that answer your question?
Hi, very impressive demo. Thank you for that, actually, especially the latency you showed. The question I have is, how much of data actually is secure, leaving your network going to GPT? Did you guys make sure the privacy is taken care?
Absolutely. So we're using an enterprise API. We're not using ChatGPT. We're using the enterprise API for GPT, I believe 3.5. So this is all very secure, and essentially it's the same as if you store your data in Azure Cloud, if you want to go read through their privacy statements. Yeah.
I think that's it.
Oh, it looks like we have one more back to the right. Oh, they cut us off. But here's the thing. Camden Hells. There's a pint station back there. We'll field some questions by the Camden Hells pint station. That's where you can find me and Liz. And then we've got a booth directly that way. You'll be able to see Max, and we can answer any question that you have. And luckily, there's people a lot smarter than me at that booth, so we can get into some details. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.